Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
One Democrat, one Republican. They both bite the dust. Or do they? Arms sales continue while we pretend we have a ceasefire. Dishonest, straight, open claim from courtroom to disbarred. Trump sells Kennedy down the river. We're just getting started. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, news the networks refuse to use. It all starts now. The good doctor's with me. Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. Check out his collegiate series, To Preserve the Nation. Also join his weekly Q&As on the Constitution every Thursday night. It's an incredible webinar. Your ticket to ride is at freedomsrisingsun.com. It is a freedom-loving, fantastic, faith-filled. We're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time. Friday. That means news the networks refuse to use starts now. Doctor, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Sam. I'm hoping that there's not a digital network connection issue. Maybe people have been hearing you as badly as I have, but maybe it's on my end. But maybe we can have that checked.
Issues all on my end, Dr. Bradley. Why don't you start? I'll be right back.
All right. Well, Sam's...
Oh, she says it's on Dr. Bradley's end. Hold on. So we'll try to hopefully get that resolved or whatever else. Maybe I just sound just fine. But there's so much news the networks refuse to use to cover today. That's for sure. Arms sales continue while we pretend we have a ceasefire. That's the first one I want to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, because there's two stories in the news that relate to this that are really critical for you to understand. The first one is I believe this open, straight claim is dishonest, ladies and gentlemen. I don't believe they're leveling with you at all. You hear Iran saying, yeah, we got the Strait open, and the United States saying, yeah, we got the Strait open. It isn't really true, folks. You say, well, wait a minute, Sam, can't commercial ships pass? Yes, they kind of can. Let me explain. Iran still controls the Strait, folks. Let's be very clear, and let's not pretend that's not the case. Iran still controls the Strait, which means at any second they could stop it. Or it's open now, but if they find anything they disagree with or don't like, it's not going to continue. So it's kind of open, right? It's kind of like they say, oh, we're letting people in to a game or a concert or something. And they are, but they check every one of you in. If you're a Trump supporter, you're not getting in. Or if you're this, you're not that, et cetera. So it's kind of true, but it's not really true. It's a dishonest claim that the Strait's open. So Iran still controls the Strait. Let's be very clear about that. And the U.S. blockade is still in place, ladies and gentlemen. Ships can pass only under Iran's direction during a, quote, short ceasefire. And U.S. restrictions on Iranian ships remain unchanged. So when they tell you the Strait's open, it's a flat-out lie, Dr. Bradley.
Well, that's just, you can go online and you can look and see the positioning of ships around the Straits of Hormuz. You can actually watch any that transit the Straits. And it is bizarre that anybody can put this kind of spin on anything, as you so accurately portray. Iran has still got the stranglehold if they want it. And they hold that. That's their nuclear ticket, if you will. And the United States blockade on the high seas, they're in a real standoff position. I'll explain that if you are interested in a minute. Basically, they're on the high seas. They're in international water. And that is an act of war to do that. And anybody that gets blockaded is having a forceful rejection by the United States. And, two wrongs don't make a right. We can always remind ourselves that on the 27th of February, before the U.S. and Israel launched the war against Iran, the Straits were open. It was passage.
And by the way, back then they were truly open.
They really, truly were open. And so here's the deal. First of all, the United States warships are standing way off, probably 500 miles from the hot spot, because I think they're very, very, and rightly so, nervous about some ballistic missile launch, and if it took down a carrier or a battleship or a cruiser or whatever, oh, that would be really bad news. They'd lose a lot of face on that one. And on top of that, a lot of equipment, and on top of that, a lot of lives. And that's
but if they've really shut down the capabilities of Iran to that point, we don't have those worries, Doctor. So the fact that they're so far away highlights the truth in that reality as well.
Indeed, it does, and they're very nervous, I think, about losing a whole bunch of things that I just mentioned. But the fact of the matter is that Iran still has the capability to do that. It's not a done deal, and the straits were open. And here's the deal. If, in fact, China decides to steam on through, and he's got some battleship, the captain of the tanker has some U.S. battleship next to him, squawking at him that he needs to turn back, and he keeps going, what's the United States going to do? I mean, are they going to torpedo or launch something against some kind of? Are they going to have an international deal like that? I mean, Xi Jinping and Trump are supposed to meet in the near future. But here's the other thing. I mean, there's so many things to talk about this blockade. The blockade is sick and wrong every time.
Anyway,
Trump
let's just be clear, though. They're lying when they say that the strait's open. It's not really the truth. You can say, oh, it's kind of open, but it reminds me, like I say, Doctor, of going to a rock concert. And yes, it's open. But if you wear a blue hat, if you got a green shirt, if you like Donald Trump, you're getting turned away. You're getting turned away. You're getting turned away. And so what they'll do is they'll show a few ships going through, and they'll make you believe it's open while they have this, quote, temporary ceasefire. But let's be clear on the other side of the coin, to be honest. The Senate just passed. Well, I should say they did not pass. What? No, they did not pass measures aimed at halting weapon transfers, allowing the sale of weapons to Israel to proceed. So let me explain it this way. The Senate fails to block Trump's sale of arms to Israel. So let me get this right. We got a ceasefire. The strait's closed. But Iran controls the strait, and the United States blockade is still in place, and the Senate basically didn't stop Trump. He can go ahead and sell more weapons to Israel. And then they tried to say, hey, let's stop Donald from doing a lot of these things in the war. They failed at that too. So, folks, as far as I can tell, they're telling you there's a red light on war, but the green lights are everywhere, baby. Is that the truth, Doctor, or am I overstating it?
No, you're, in fact, I think if anything, you're understating it because I would never want to accuse you of that, Sam, but
I'm trying to be accurate, though, and I'm trying not to just take license to tell more than is documentable and everything. But I agree. I'm being soft on it. But look, they're going for more war. This is just a temporary make you feel good that they're trying and that they're not for war. They want you to believe they're against war. But if they're really against war, why attack the Pope for documenting his stance for peace? Why attack the Pope over that, Doctor?
It is an amazing enigma to me. I mean, the Catholic Church has a big footprint in the United States, and a lot of people in the United States respect the Pope. And, he has some, they have a soft spot in their heart at the very least. He's the first American Pope in the world. I mean, he's a guy from the United States. And Trump is just unbelievably, he runs his mouth. We had a guy that I was in the service with. His last name was kind of a derivation of Magno. We called him Magno Motormouth. And that guy could not stop flapping his lips. And every time he turned around, there was another something he'd stepped in. And Trump does that just incessantly, it seems like. I'm so disheartened by it. I mean, and this idea, oh, yeah, the war's going to end any minute now. I mean, come on. I mean, and here they're arming up again. Every single bomb that gets dropped in, Gaza or Lebanon or Iran from an Israeli, logoed aircraft or anything like that is U.S. origin, and so we have put our name on every single piece of ordnance. Thousands of people have been killed. Think of those little girls in the school, 170 something of them, double tapped, and they launched 2 strikes against them, knowing full well that it was a school. I mean, bad coordinates? I don't think so. I think when you got another Tomahawk up there cruising around looking at the site.
Well, if you really honestly did have bad information, then you would admit and not blame it on somebody else. You would say, oh my gosh, we are so sorry. We did make a misstep. You would own it, be honest, and claim it. But when you continue to deny and blame it on somebody else, you can't convince me that you're honorable, Doctor.
Absolutely, and it goes way beyond that. It's losses of equipment. It's how much damage has been done. I mean, you say, oh, this is all classified. Well, yeah, it is, but you know what? Americans are losing their lives there, and there's not an admission of it, I believe. I believe there is.
You're right about that, and to me, what we're talking about is the moral high ground. And how do you expect us to hold the moral high ground when we know when we're covering things up and dishonest about reality? Then you know there's games. More discussions on the negotiations, the ceasefire, and the blockade in seconds. You're watching and listening to Liberty Roundtable Live.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, by having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids.
Are you watching what's happening in our country and asking, what can I do? Join the John Birch Society in Salt Lake City, June 6th, for a powerful one-day conference. The day includes a host of respected speakers, 2 meals, and meaningful connections. You'll gain clarity on the issues and walk away with practical steps you can take to your community. Reserve your seat today at jbs.org/SLC26. That's jbs.org/SLC26.
Audio's way too loud. All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. So U.S. senators did not halt weapon transfers by Donald to Israel. We don't have money for this, ladies and gentlemen. You say, oh, we're selling and making money. Yeah, you think? I don't think so. The ceasefire, negotiations, and the blockade. I don't think there's a single thing we're being told in the media that's actually factual, Doctor. I think every single item in not only the ceasefire, but the negotiations and the blockade, we're being punked on every single thing coming out of the White House, coming out of Iran, and coming out of the media.
I believe you're correct, and I'm not cynical. I'm just looking at what the activities are. You know, you say, oh, you're so jaded, you want to spin this in a negative all the way. But the fact that, let's just look at the ceasefire itself. Out of Islamabad, prior to the ceasefire, they posted on X that a ceasefire agreement was underway, and they said what it included. It included Lebanon. And so what happens the next morning? Boom. Lebanon lights up. 400 people, 400 civilians killed the first day of this ceasefire that included Israel, Lebanon, the United States, and Iran. And it's just, to me, it's like, okay, which liar do I believe this time? You cannot, are their lips moving? Yep, okay, they're lying. I mean, that's kind of where you come down to on this thing. And it's a sad, sad scenario. And you say, well, they can't release all classified information. Well, then quit lying to me about the stuff that isn't. So just don't say anything if there's nothing to say. And I'm a little bit afraid, by the way, that, like I say, our casualty lists, I get from some other sources around the world some of the estimates of actual, captures and kills and woundeds and all that kind of stuff. And, I think they're being disingenuous, and that's being rather kind,
that is the problem, is they've lost trust, ladies and gentlemen. Ronald Reagan used to say trust but verify. Now I say you cannot trust, and it's almost impossible to verify. So where does that leave us? NATO is what? Hesitant to engage in this war at all?
Well,
What's up with
they
that,
are,
Doctor?
but I think they're rightfully in that position. I mean, Donald Trump acts like they're his little puppets to, oh man, we're in trouble over here, send some guns or bullets or send some equipment, whatever. NATO is a defensive treaty. And NATO, signed in 1949, it's a United Nations document that's, I'm totally against NATO. We ought to get out of NATO, and I applaud that action, but here's the deal. It is a defensive treaty. And if you get it and read it, and I could read segments out of it if you wanted me to, but to tell you the truth, it says if you're attacked, we will respond to defend you. The United States was not attacked. The United States started this bar fight. And by the way, it's a very interesting thing. I'm a concealed carry instructor, and we have some very, very specific things we teach people. If you're going to carry, you've got responsibility. And if you go in and you start a bar fight, and just using that since I started off on that vein, and somebody punches you back and you shoot them, you're wrong. It's wrong, and it doesn't just go with guns. If you start a fight, say, let's take it outside, and you kick the guy's head in and kill him, you're at fault. You were the instigator. And this goes with international protocol also. The United States does not have a defensive role that they can count on NATO for responding to. And it is just absurd to me. NATO says, hey, you broke it, you bought it, you own it. And that's what it should be. You cannot, and we should never be drawn into a battle, and the whole treaty's faulty. It violates constitutional protocol. It violates the will of the founding fathers. And this idea that we can be brought into a war like Truman did in Korea when the Korean thing blew up, it's just not the way that the founding fathers intended. Now, by the way, just for the fun of it, you can go back to Reed v. Covert, a 1957 decision by the Warren Court, which unequivocally, unabashedly admits that no treaty can abrogate a constitutional responsibility. And so if we have a treaty that says we go to war if you get attacked, it's unconstitutional. So we have so many things that apparently, for some reason, Donald Trump doesn't have good advisors. He's clowns on the left of me, jokers to the right. I don't know what it is, or if he just plain impatiently decides that he's going to be the emperor. I don't know, but he's on the wrong foot. He's doing the wrong thing.
The problem with it is that we need accurate, truthful information. And if you really want ceasefires, or you really want peace, or you really want an open blockade, or the first thing you need to do is hold the moral high ground and be honest and clear. And you might say, Sam, you can't do that. You got to understand, you lose the moral negotiations if you put all your cards on the table, and you lose this if you're that. Look, I understand all that, but you don't need to put the cart before the horse and tell me there's peace when there's not. This peace agreement is so fragile. It's not honorable to say, hey, we've got a ceasefire. They break the ceasefires all the time. How often do we even hear when they do? So it's a very narrow ceasefire at best. I mean, Trump basically promised that he would rebuild Gaza, right? Trump, here's what he said. In February 2026, Trump pledged about $10 billion tied to rebuilding Gaza, right? This was part of a, quote, broader international initiative called the Board of Peace, which Donald created a new international government board, basically. Other countries put in about $7 billion. But here's the key reality check on it. The $10 billion was not a direct check to Gaza. It was a pledge to an international fund. It would likely require congressional approval and other conditions. The plan depends on major conditions like Hamas disarmament, political control changes, total rebuilding cost, just so you all know, they're saying it's about 50 to 70 billion. And of course, they never have cost overruns, so don't worry about anything like that, The current status, this is where it gets all messy, folks. The overall plan, is struggling and largely stalled. Why? Because there's not actual funding coming in, says Reuters. Tens of billions are pledged, but only a small fraction has actually been delivered. Bottom line, folks, yes, Trump did publicly promise around $10 billion tied to rebuilding Gaza, but it's a very conditional pledge inside a larger plan. Again, when you deliver that headline, hey, we're putting $10 billion into getting this done, you're making people think that we got a deal. It's peaceful. We're rebuilding Gaza. Doctor, we're not even close to that. That is such BS. We're not even close to that. Not even from a funding point of view, but even from an agreement to get it done point of view. We're nowhere near that. And so we're making these promises that we're on the, look, Donald said 2 to 3 weeks in the beginning on what, February 28th? Now we're 7 weeks in, and we see nothing but continued escalation, really, under the guise of peace, right?
Well, this thing in Gaza, I mean, someday we ought to go back to the blockade and see what China's going to do. But let's talk about Gaza for a minute. It's grossly understated, the costs of it. The funds, they're not somebody's back pocket. Congress, absolutely, if the United States is going to be involved in it, will have to approve. The United States Constitution has no authority whatsoever to redistribute wealth to anybody, not internationally, not locally, not anybody under any circumstances. There is no confiscation plan in the United States Constitution that allows to spend the money. But in addition to that, there's a lot more moving parts to this. There is private property checkerboarded into the Gaza Strip. Some own it, others of it it's not. And I think what this is a grand and glorious plan to go into bulldozers, muddy the water to the point that they're going to take full, complete control. I mean, this is
turn it into a Dubai entertainment center for the elite.
And that's another thing. I mean, what are we going to do? Turn this into another Tel Aviv where it's the yuppies are there partying hardy all the time?
Well, they talk big about this, and there's nothing there. Don't believe it because it's a big old lie at this point. It's nothing but propaganda. How did Iran shoot down an F-35, Doctor, if they don't have any capabilities?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. But see, let me just say this about that. Don't anybody get the idea that I have any classified information, insider information in regards to F-35s. That stuff hasn't been released by the Pentagon. It probably won't be. But and to date, this is really a big problem, and it deserves some attention. But to date, virtually all the combat operations of F-35s have been under the hands of Israeli pilots. We've turned them over to the Israelis. They've used them, to bomb targets in Lebanon, Syria, Iran, and it's amazing that they've got such a small radar signature that they've gotten through, and nobody shot them down and all this kind of stuff. And their stealth systems are excellent. So it's really difficult to get radar locks on them. But some anti-aircraft systems use heat-seeking missiles, which aren't affected by any radar stealth systems on the F-35s. There's no method to conceal a fighter jet's exhaust. So I suspect that this F-35 was damaged by one of those heat-seeking missiles. So here's the deal. I am really irritated that we spend hundreds of billions of dollars developing our defensive systems. Oh, now we got to take a break. Can you believe that? How rude.
Yeah, you got to crank. Go. Finish your story.
Okay, well, I can't finish in that time because we have turned this over to other people, and we're exposing our signatures every time somebody flies one of these things. They key a mic, anybody looks on the radar, people are able to develop other things, and Iran may have decided they now know how, with Russian help, to see what this looks like in a radar signature. And so we are exposing hundreds of billions of dollars of technology every time we fly these things. We're stupid. We're using them wrong.
They call that the onerous burden of war, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being alongside for the ride. I'm Sam Bushman, Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsisaacson.com. We're everywhere. LibertyRoundtable.com, LibertyNewsRadio.com. God save our republic.